Hi, everybody. It's Erin Scott here. How are you doing? It's May 28th, 2020, and today signifies an important new cycle for us. So I wanted to talk about it. You know, it's interesting. I started to film a little bit earlier, about 15 minutes ago, and I had some music playing, and the music was relaxing me and zoning me out to such a degree. It was a completely dissolving experience mentally, and I couldn't focus on the reading. So I've turned the music off. I do have my windows open though, and we have some wind going today. Beautiful weather, actually. It's slightly overcast, it's thick, it's humid. We're due to have a storm arrive in the next day or two. And so the pressure is high, the humidity's high, and the wind is going today, um, which is nice. I love the wind. Not everybody likes the wind, but I really love the wind. So we have not music in the background, but wind. Okay. So what is the deal with this cycle that begins today? Well, for those of you that remember months ago when I posted about this 3-month Kal Sarpa yoga cycle that we were going to be going through, we've just ended it. It actually ended in the wee hours early in the morning today, the 28th of May. So you can see here at 12:45 a.m. Eastern Time on today's date. This is the official kind of breaking of the Kal Sarpa yoga, which I'm going to talk about. But if you remember, we had the beginning of it occur the 26th of February. Okay. This is that chart. And I've talked about the signature of the process that we had. I'm going to refer back to it here. But what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about what the similarities are between the beginning of the cycle and this ending of the cycle and what it means. What were some of the key narratives that we played out over this 3-month period? Clearly, as we all recognize, the COVID situation globally has unfolded to great degree. We've also had a very heightened increase in authoritarian processes. As I record this to you, I just came off of looking at a post about George Floyd, who was just killed in Minnesota. Although I have a groundedness about me when it comes to these processes that are going on the planet, I come from a grounded place of wanting justice, and I think many people do. The imbalances that are playing out, the extremities that are playing out, are literally create disturbance in the physical body, at least mine. Okay, so there's a nauseating level at which humans continue to be and stay devolved, unwilling to be honest with their own minds, their own thinking, their own stories, their own reactions, their own behavior, their own emotions. I mean, come on. Literally, it's a teenage mind. Most human beings are living from a teenage orientation. And, it's time. It's time to evolve. The level of cruelty really is going to be exacerbated to everybody. We're going to see more exacerbation in the fall. I'm just going to give you that warning now. We're going to see more exacerbation. I'll talk more about the upcoming cycle soon in another video. So beauties, let's take a look at what this is. I'm going to take a little sip of my water here. We're going to look at the symbology too, by the way. I have my symbols pulled up, and the symbols that we're going to look at are the original Sabian symbols. They're not through the lens of Dane Rudhyar. These are through the lens of Mark Edmund Jones, who was the astrologer that hired L.C. Wheeler in 1925. So this is what we're going to look at. But what we want to look at first is kind of a correlation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this to the side here, okay? And I'm going to pull this to the side. So this is the beginning of the cycle up here, all right? Let's pull that over. Okay, so we have the beginning of the Kal Sarpa cycle, February 26th, and then we have the end of it, May 28th. So what, 3 months and 2 days? Really almost 3 months to the exact point, really, because we're talking about, February being a short month. Leap year had an extra day, but we still have a couple days short. So 90 days essentially. But what I want to point out is something very interesting. What we're going to look at with this particular chart in some detail is the energetic, the signature for what this means, the breaking of the Kal Sarpa. Mercury has officially moved past the point of the North Node. It's breaking the hemmed in planetary placements between the nodal axis. Okay? Now, that being said, the moon was the planet that would break the Kal Sarpa, sort of, every 2 weeks. So over the 90-day cycle, from the end of February to the end of May, for all of us, the moon would move out of this Kal Sarpa hemmed in positioning for 2 weeks out of every month, right? So you're going to notice here that the moon is in fact in Leo. It's outside of the Kal Sarpa yoga. But this was the point of exit every couple of weeks. All of the other personal planets, all of the other transpersonal planets are all hemmed in. And the one that's breaking the Kal Sarpa yoga is Mercury. So we're going to be talking about Mercury, its degree, the sun's placement, the moon's placement. But this is what I want to show you before we do that. This was the start of the Kal Sarpa yoga at the end of February, okay? Notice the degree of the sun. The sun here is at 7 degrees Pisces. And notice that it's with Mercury, okay? So firstly, let's look at the sun. When we entered this karmic process, when we're talking, everybody, about a Kal Sarpa yoga cycle, we're talking about a cycle of condensed karmic experience, obligated experience, necessary and condensed, compressed processes that are occurring. Okay? There's a necessity, there's a evolutionary chapter that is packed with necessary experience. And there's probably more to say about it. There will be other people that are deeper experts in this than I am. But what I know about it and what I've brought up, in February and here, it applies, it's accurate. What we've all lived through for the last 3 months, it's accurate. It's karmic process, necessary processes. Some of it intensified, some of it dark. Okay? But look at the position when we started the process. The sun was at 7 degrees Pisces. Look at the sun as we exit the process. 7 degrees Gemini. Okay? So just hold that. 7 degrees sun, 7 degrees sun. We started the process with a Neptunian Piscean identity. One kind of karmically positioned. When we're talking about any kind of planetary point in Pisces, and here we're looking at the kind of the natural zodiac wheel here, the starting point at 0 degrees Aries. This is the natural wheel, okay? And when we're looking at Pisces 12th house, this is karmic process. The identity, the sun was located in the 12th house in Pisces, ruled by Neptune. This is a spiritual process that's underpinning the cycle. And it is an obligatory process that might involve some darker aspects of, situations and conditions and relationship dynamics and communications and all kinds of things. But when we're looking at the number 7 and looking at the number 7, we start at a 7 in water, we end at a 7 in mind. We start at a 7 conjunct the mind, we end at a process where the identity is ruled by the mind, and the mind is the thing pushing out of the Kal Sarpa process. The mind, Mercury. Mercury is the planet breaking the process. Mercury was with the identity here. Now it's breaking into new territory here. So I'm going to talk about that. But here, at the beginning of this process and through this last several months, this was karmic, karmic processes as it relates to the need for discernment, the need for discernment of Neptunian aspects of function, the need to access new levels of intuitive wisdom and intuitive knowing, a broader knowing, a karmic process of activating more compassion with our communications, with our thought processes. That's definitively been the case globally over the last 90 days. A compassionate identity, a compassionate mind for the karmic processes unfolding. Yes, that's what's been occurring. And here at the end of this process, let's go back over here. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and pull this back. Okay. Okay. So what I want to point out is that now we've gone through this kind of Piscean process of identity, of mind, of global activation. The other thing, everybody, is that sun in Pisces, the mind in Pisces, and of course Neptune in Pisces, Pisces and Neptune rule infectious diseases. It rules viruses. So the karmic process, as it would relate to the viral exponential growth globally and the various things we've been seeing unfolding, yes, it's correct. It's correct. Karmic process as it relates to this Piscean Neptunian function, including viral activations. Right? It makes sense. It just makes sense. And the other thing that we have here, which I want to point out as well, is when we started the process, look at the 6-degree Mercury. It was exactly trining where the North Node was then. Sextiling the South Node at 6 degrees, trining the North Node at 6 degrees Cancer. So this was kind of necessary karmic activations happening in the world that would trigger a new way of thinking, harmonically connected to the evolutionary arc that was at play naturally. Okay? Now, that being said, here is Mercury breaking the Kal Sarpa. Mercury does go fast. It would perhaps make sense that Mercury breaks it, but that's not necessarily the case. Not even close. Kal Sarpas can be activated with the Sun and Mercury and Venus, in other places here. And it could have been another planet that's going to break that Kal Sarpa process. This hemmed in process. Now, what you're going to notice is that the North Node here, as of this point in time, and really activated for the next, for the next 6 weeks or something. We have this 29-degree nodal axis for weeks, like 6 weeks, So here we are breaking the Kal Sarpa when we have the nodal axis at 29, a critical degree, an integration degree, a maturity degree, a degree. 29 asks for this assimilation of learnings, assimilation of information, maturing of how the mind interprets things. There is a level of discernment activated with the 29-degree mind. 29-degree Gemini ruled by Mercury. And Mercury, breaking the Kal Sarpa, moving into the new degree point. Now, this is the other key thing that I want to bring up for all of you, is that this the actual chart that I pulled up for this 12:45 a.m., this was the exact point, essentially, that Mercury extended beyond the 29 degrees 13-minute north node. So what you're seeing here is Mercury at 29 degrees 14 minutes, literally at the point of transition. That's what this is. And this gives us the sun degree. It gives us the exact point of the moon as well, which is something that I also want to talk to you about. Because a key aspect to the activation of this new cycle inherently speaks to the moon's position. But let's first talk about Mercury. So we've been going through this karmic process over the last 3 months globally as a collective. And now we have Mercury moving into ultimately the new degree point after this 29 degree north node. And what is that? 0 degree Cancer. This is a cardinal point. This is the point of the summer solstice. This is the point of the summer solstice, everybody, that's going to have a eclipse point activated. In fact, let me pull that up. Let me tell you what it is. So, in other words, this point where the Kal Sarpa breaks is emphasizing 0 degrees Cancer. 0 degrees Cancer is the summer solstice for the northern hemisphere. And this point is a cardinal point. It's a season starting point. This is the point of a new season. What does this represent symbolically? A new season of the mind, literally. So here we began with the mind possibly in a Neptunian state, possibly an emotional confusion state, a spiritually confused state, as we started this process at the end of February. Some sort of mental confusion here. Who are we? What are we here to do? What's happening in the world? Some level of confusion here. But what was happening was karmically appropriate and trining the nodal axis of growth and evolution. Here, the mind is now assimilated and it's beginning a new journey. 0 degrees Cancer, a new cardinal journey. Now, what I'm going to tell you is this. We will have the summer solstice occurring on the 20th. This is Eastern time. On the 20th of June, the sun will enter Cancer at 5:44 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday the 20th. We will then on the 21st at 2 a.m., 2:41 a.m., have a new moon annular solar eclipse. So new moon solar eclipse happening a handful of hours after this point of the summer solstice this year. Okay? So this is a point of shift. This, in other words, the Kal Sarpa breaking at this point in 2020 and this particular year also having the solstice activated by a new moon eclipse, this is a big deal. It's pointing us toward that date. It's pointing us toward this new cycle. It's pointing us toward the season of, now I'm going to say the season of summer. Please understand, I say it as an archetypal reality. So even those of you in the Southern Hemisphere that are listening to my voice and are realizing that actually you're going to be at the winter solstice at that point, it really is the same. It's a polar opposite, but it is an activation point and it is a cardinal point. That's kind of the key here. So for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, those of us in the Southern, it's still a cardinal new point. Okay. So the mind is beginning a new journey. Now, what is the new journey? Well, it's in Cancer, ruled by the moon. For many people, there's going to be a new level of emotional mind that might take over a bit. People that are not quite so awake, people that are not quite so willing to see or know themselves very clearly. These are going to be people on a new level of emotional thinking. For others of you, for other people, for most of you listening to my voice now, this is going to be a new mind of the compassionate, empathetic, feminine, emotionally connected, intuitive intelligence mind. The more right brain functioning that's helping to rebalance and recatalyze the imbalances and the skews mentally and physically in our current reality. So for many of you listening to my voice, the new journey of mind is a new beginning. It's a new level of interconnectedness and wholeness. It's a new level of honoring the feminine, the emotional wisdom, the intuitive intelligence systems. And you'll all know that the North Node had just come from spending 18 months in Cancer. The drive was to connect more deeply to issues of real meaning. What has meaning for you? What matters to you personally, according to your own distinct blueprint. So people have been feeling into these deeper strata of self for a couple of years now. And now the karmic process ends, the new mind begins. It is a new season, it's cardinal, a new beginning of some sort, a new chapter of thinking. It's very potent, everybody. Now, at the same time that the mind is beginning anew, the break of the mind, the break of the Kal Sarpa means that it's a new mind going in a new direction. What we simultaneously have is the sun in Gemini. The sun in Gemini ruled by the mind, ruled by Mercury, ruled by all of the functionality of Mercury. Learning, curiosity, connection, networks, contact, local communities. So the identity as a cooperative and engaged social member with their community, somebody who is learning and curious and sharing information and helping and supporting each other. You know, this is going to be, a lot of this is going to be still online. There's going to be issues arising in the fall which might look like more containment. It's going to take a certain level of maturity and groundedness, ownership of stuff, of ourselves, you know, as opposed to being reactionary and thinking that everything external is some sort of affront to who you are. That's not the case. There's different ways to deal with what's happening on the planet now, right? But the point is, Mercury is breaking the Kal Sarpa, a new mind, and that new mind is driving the identity. Gemini Sun. The number 7, 7 represents that which cannot fully be known. It represents spiritual. So the spiritual identity, or a more kind of uncertain identity, maybe not so attached to some sort of fixed identity. There's a looser, more mutable. This is a mutable sign, Gemini. So there's a mutable, adaptable identity that's shown here. The new mind, a new adaptable persona. The interesting thing is when we started this, we also have a mutable sign here. You know, the sun was at 7 in Pisces, ruled by water. So there was some sort of uncertainty emotionally about various things, about who you are, about what you think about things, about certain storylines that you see in the news and on videos, and all sorts of theories about this, that, and the other. All kinds of confusion was as we kind of signatured the beginning of this cycle and process. So 7 and 7, both in mutable signs. Here, there is a level of mental mutability and adaptability. We start a new cycle. It's a new cardinal cycle. It's a new summer expressed yet meaningful. You know, the mind connecting to what really matters: home, property, safety issues, security issues, family issues, emotional issues, what really matters and what really feeds your soul, what feeds you emotionally. This is the new mind. The new mind is not necessarily going to be focused up here. We have to think about the political narrative on the collective, certainly. We have to. We have to participate. It's our duty to participate in the greater whole and the structure of our society. But the mind is really going to be focused. Communications, learning, sharing, networking, databases. It's going to be very much focused on the real meaningful juice of life. So we have the moon over here in Leo. The interesting thing, everybody, is that when we started this Kal Sarpa process, look at where the moon was. It was in Aries, a fire sign. So we had the sun in a mutable sign. We had the moon in a fire sign. It's, or, no, we have this in a fire sign, but it's a cardinal sign. Pardon me, a cardinal sign. Here it was mutable and cardinal. Okay. So, but the moon was in a fire sign as we started this process. So very much emotionally, it was about the sense of the individual, the sense of needing sovereignty and freedom, and, you know, the need to, there was a focus on the self as we started this process, this 3-month process. There was kind of an emotional focus on the identity, on the self, on the body, on the body, on the energy, on the driver, on anger issues, Mars energy, what enrages, what angers, what frustrates. These kind of things have all been activated as part of the signature of that Kal Sarpa process. Here, the moon is again at another fire sign, but here it's a fixed sign. This is fixed fire. It started with cardinal fire. So there was kind of a new level of anger, rage that would rise. There would be a level of innovation that would rise in the last 3 months with the moon in Aries as we started this process. So innovation, passion, focus on the physical body, all of this kind of stuff was the natural kind of orientation. Emotionally, that was the place of focus. Here, as we leave, as the Kal Sarpa breaks into the new chapter of growth, we have another moon in fire, but it's different. It's fixed fire, and it's Leo, the archetype of Leo being the creatively expressed, confident, individuated self. So it's not so much about the infantile Aries self, it's about the creatively expressed self. So this is kind of tied to the signature of this new cycle. What has meaning for us as individuals as well as the collective. So collectively, what are humans kind of feeling into? What are they resonant with at this time? Their expression, their freedom, their individuation, their confidence, their creativity, their projects, issues of love and play. There is a level of playfulness. There is a level of humor. There is a level of having fun. Some people are going to be accessing a level of fun and play with the emergence, with the evolutionary impulse as we move into this new cycle for the next few months. And the reason why I say for the next, and I really mean the next couple of months, and the reason being is that Pluto is going to come back to a key point in August. There's going to be some activations happening in the fall, which is going to bring a new energetic. So I'll talk about that later. But for the next couple of months, I feel that there's going to be a level of purity that's desired, pure expression, joyful, fun, playful, almost having creative fun at some level. Not everybody's going to be able to do this. Some people are going to be very serious and very kind of feeling that they still want to isolate. You know, some people are going to be going through their own distinct activation. But the truth is, there is a level of joy with this Leo moon. And there is a level of creative expression that's going to hopefully come out more innocently. There might be more of a purity of flow, of creative juice that comes out in the next couple of months. And moving forward, really. But I say the next couple of months because I feel that that's kind of this window that we have. Now, it is still a fire moon. Fire is still ruling the feelings here. And this can be very sensitive and prideful. The moon in Leo can get activated if it's wounded. And for us, all of us, this moon in Leo is triggered by Lilith, Black Moon Lilith with Uranus. So there's kind of this disempowerment narrative that gets activated by not knowing how reality is unfolding. And for some people, it's going to trigger their pride. For some people, it's going to trigger them in an unconscious way. There's no need to get triggered because this square is here. But most people are unawake to what the activation is and unwilling to do the self-investigatory work to understand it. But the Leo moon, when it's wounded, which this one is going, and it has this opposition up here too, well, it doesn't. That's the ascendant point for the East Coast. We don't want to look at that for this reading. But the moon's trigger up here is significant. And the moon also has a quincunx. So this 12-degree moon has this quincunx over here to Mars. So there is almost an anger at God, an anger at what's unfolding, an anger at the karmic processes, an anger at the death that has been happening on the collective, an anger at the, let's say, regressed level of humanity, and the anger or the disruption or the aggression that has been disrupting peace. So at some level, there's some issue of deep kind of embedded anger, repressed anger, and that can exacerbate, let's say, a more entitled attitude, a more prideful and egotistically sensitive response mechanism. So the moon in Leo in the natural fifth house orientation, especially being somewhat close to Varuna, this can look like a lot of righteousness here, a lot of entitlement here. I deserve it because I am, This can be narcissistic in its orientation, this kind of thing. So in some people, this is going to activate in certain ways, In other people, there's going to be just simply a natural resonance for following the passion, following the bliss, paying attention to the creative things that want to come through. Okay. The other thing that we have here, I don't want to talk about the MC or the part of fortune. I was going to look at the part of fortune, but part of fortune is really for the East Coast people, everybody. I'm just letting you know. That doesn't apply to us globally, so I'm not going to talk about it. The moon is also sextiling Venus, as well as the sun. So the sun and Venus in this signature are both in Gemini. Venus is retrograde. It has been, and it will continue to be for the next several weeks. And this kind of combination, a 10-degree orb, but still a little bit over 10 degrees. But the sun with Venus, this is about kind of the mind aligning with its own values, communicating from a place of its own values. There's more of a love of self. I don't consider this combust. I feel that there's more of an alignment with value system. What the mind is thinking, what the mouth is speaking, there's some level of alignment here. And indeed, there's a sextile to the moon in Libra. There is a level of lightness with the Gemini functions. And the connection to the kind of the innocent, whimsical, childlike, confident, kind of a natural confidence that Leo can bring forward. The inner self kind of accessing the child within. kind of really communicating and able to let loose and have fun with the group, the local community. As it stands now, as I'm doing this recording for you, many areas are now opening up. So there's more activity on the roads, in the restaurants. They might still separate out the tables, which we're doing here in my town, but there's more people out enjoying nature, out enjoying the local businesses now. You know, it's all good, and it might come crashing down again. So just be prepared, everybody. It's a roller coaster, and it's an appropriate roller coaster. It's correct. It's correct for our growth process and evolutionary situation here. Um, One thing that I'll point out is that because the North Node at 29 and ultimately the Mercury point now, as it's gone past the Kal Sarpa point, and ultimately onto that 0 degrees, which, by the way, is going to happen only in a few hours. It's going to happen tomorrow, which is the 29th of May. So on the 29th, Mercury will be at that 0 degree point. But the point is that the North Node and this new mind, both of these are quincunxing Pluto, Jupiter, Pallas Athena, Saturn. So there's kind of this dissonant relationship between the growth arc and the new mind that's calling. A lot of people will be pulled into what the authorities say, what the government speaks. You know, they'll be pulled in, and they'll adopt the restrictions. There might be a certain level of negative mindset about the state of humanity that will interrupt the new mind that is actually calling to come about. So just be mindful of that. Now, let's take a look at a couple things here. I'm going to pull this over. I think I'll pull this over as well. Okay, everybody. Sorry, this one's a little bit longer of a video, but that's all right. Let me take a little sip here. We're going to read this. Now, what we're looking at here, and I'm going to move this over actually, I'm just going to read it. So what we're looking at here with this Sabian symbol point of Cancer 1 degree, we're actually looking at Cancer 0 to 1 degree. And this represents the actual new degree point that Mercury will enter officially past the Kal Sarpa. The point that you see here is actually to the minute. So the moment that it passed the Kal Sarpa point of that North Node at 29 degrees 13 minutes, that's the point of the exact Kal Sarpa moment. But very quickly, this Mercury is going to enter into 0 Cancer, this cardinal new seasonal point. And in addition to that, we have the symbology here. Now, this is from the book by Mark Edmund Jones. He was the one who partnered with Elsie Wheeler in the mid-20s, 1925. And since then, he wrote this book. This was actually, it took him years to actually go back and write it. My understanding is this came out in 1950. Let me look. Let's see what the date on it is. Well, this was published in 1993, but this came out, I think, in early 50s. Okay. So let's take a look here. So Cancer 1 degree. This is the new mind. So just feel into this. A furled and unfurled flag displayed from a vessel. This is a symbol of the extremes to which an individual will go in the practical allegiances with which he or she meets the various situations in life, and of the capacity to compromise or reverse any stand taken whenever suits the ultimate ends. Here is his or her inflexible determination to further every ambition and a consistent preparation for every eventuality that might be anticipated. He or she is unhappy to accept that somehow they can feel themselves safely a step ahead of themselves. The key word is adaptability. When positive, the degree is a gift for highly profitable adjustment in every developing relationship with others. And when applied in the negative, vacillation, if not complete instability. So, what I want to point out with that is that there perfectly, as is the case with any signature, there are different ways by which this mental activation of the new story is going to activate within people. It depends on their blueprint, their natural signature. It depends on their consciousness level, their degree of awakeness and willingness to mature, essentially, and to see correctly, to see clearly. Okay? So it depends on many things, but you can see that what I love about what Mark Edmund Jones does is that he has, when activated in the positive or in the higher frequency iteration, the degree is a gift for highly profitable adjustment in every developing relationship with others. Why is that so potent to the now? Because the signature for this broken Kal Sarpa by the mind, the new journey of the mind, is indicated or is aligned with this Gemini identity and a Gemini value system. This inherently has to do with not only how the mind focuses its energy, how it thinks, but how it communicates as well. How the individual learns and socializes. What are the values, and is the communication done with warmth and compassion? Indeed, the point of the new mind in Cancer, ruled by the moon, is bringing forward more of a feminine surge, feminine quality sets. And here we have the identity with Venus, the feminine. So it's not going to be without its growth edges, but it is going to be a potential to bring adaptability when it comes to relational dynamics. How we talk to each other, how we think about each other, etc. Okay? Now, what I want to look at also is the sun. So let's go here, everybody. Now, here we're looking at Gemini 7 to 8 degrees. 7 to 8 degrees, Gemini. An industrial strike. This is a symbol of the necessity that humans act in their own interest whenever a general situation fails to provide him or her with the creative outlet needed, or proves inadequate for his or her relations with fellows, with people. Implicit in the reverse symbolism is an emphasis on the instabilities of life as a dynamic for accomplishment, calling on the human spirit for constructive reorganization. There is here the dignity of a personality which may be exalted but never exploited. The key word is protest. When positive, the degree is undeviating self-assertiveness and a refusal to accept any lesser in lieu of a greater. And when negative, a dissatisfaction which surrenders rather than regrasps the self's potential. I'm going to repeat that. So the key word here for the identity, everybody, is protest. We're looking at the sun. The signature of the energy of this new cycle that we're moving into, a new mind, also is aligned with an identity that is a Gemini identity, a Gemini value system, and one which protests. Now, how appropriate does this feel for all of you? We are moving into a phase of pushing back against extreme levels of injustice. All of us are. But the thing is, we have two iterations here. So let's reread it. The key word is protest. When positive, the degree is undeviating self-assertiveness and a refusal to accept any lesser in lieu of a greater. And when it's in its negative iteration, there is a dissatisfaction which surrenders rather than regrasps the self's potential. In other words, somebody could give up. The industrial strike for some might feel overwhelming. And so some people are going to choose to give up and not engage and not push back against the extreme levels of severe injustices, crimes against humanity, crimes against the planet. So what does this mean, everybody? The new mind is aligned with what matters, and the new identity is that of a protester. Okay? Now, let's go to the moon. Let's look at the moon. So here, what we're looking at is 12 to 13 degrees Leo, and I love this. Oh, actually, I want to make sure that that's correct. Yeah, this is it. Leo, 12 to 13 degrees, right? I love this symbol for us. An old sea captain rocking. This is a symbol of humans' great love for reliving experiences in memory and of his or her gift for achieving a mastery in advance of whatever new situations may be faced by bringing all the ramifying relationships to a focus in a personal and competent grasp for their more pertinent potentialities. He or she fights the battles of the world in the imagination over and over again. He or she knows that events repeat themselves and so may be brought in leash. The key word is retrospect. When positive, the degree in each person's unlimited capacity for calling up afresh the powers he or she has gained in struggles towards self-fulfillment. And when negative, insensibility to present reality in a full surrender to the past. I want to reread that actually. So when positive, the degree in each person's unlimited capacity for calling up afresh the powers gained in the struggle towards self-fulfillment, and when negative, insensibility to present reality in a full surrender to the past. So this is interesting. First of all, the old sea captain rocking is an older person. This is a matured person. This is somebody who has had life experiences, who is sitting there in silence contemplating, right? He might be out on his porch looking at the ocean, who knows? But the point is there's a contemplation here. There's a contemplation of the past. There's a contemplation of bringing up the skill sets and the mastery, the ability to move, continued movement and progression towards self-fulfillment. In Leo, we're talking about a creative aspect too, a level of confidence, a level of skills that you have, bringing them forward. But in a negative format, insensibility to present reality in full surrender to the past. It's a little bit hard for me to understand. Let me look something up here. There's like a lack of logic. It almost is like an aspect of delusion is what I'm getting here. Hold on a second. Unconsciousness. Insensibility is unconsciousness. Inability to feel something, especially to be moved emotionally. I'm glad I looked this up because, yeah, it's not able to be sensed. A lack of awareness or concern. Indifference, everybody. Indifference. This feels accurate here. Because the thing is, with the moon in Leo, there can be quality sets within certain individuals of narcissistic tendencies that are going to rise, apathetic tendencies that will arise, indifference that will arise. Why? Because it's all about I, me, mine. The moon in Leo can be very, very self-oriented. The ego wants to be loved, seen, respected, adored, in front, the one in front, the one in charge, the one people look to. There's a certain level of neediness that can get activated when the moon in Leo is not in a more matured state. So this insensibility to present reality, this is indifference to reality, you know? And somebody who's in a full surrender to the past. This is somebody not living in present moment reality. So this is very good to understand here. This gives us a picture of the possibility that some people, you're going to know some people in your life that are going to be in a state of indifference. And that indifference, by the way, is fed by trine over here to Chiron. The wounded power of the individual feeding into an indifference to and an apathy to the conditions that we are all facing here. You know. And what is it connected to? The polar opposite of the moon is up here at 12 degrees Aquarius. So it has to do with what's happening on the humanitarian level here. Let me read, just for shits and giggles, let me go ahead and read what that 12 to 13 degree Aquarius is. Okay, so 12 to 13 degree Aquarius, everybody, is a barometer. I'm going to move this over here, okay? Okay, so a barometer. This is this polar opposite to the moon up here. So what might be part and parcel to this activation of, let's say, indifference that might arise with some people during the course of this next chapter? It has to do with feeling into the collective. I think for some people it's going to feel overwhelming. And it might be that there's so much activity happening in the collective on the humanitarian global scale that the self will feel almost wounded that the identity is lost in the sea of activation. That's what I get, actually. So up here, the barometer, feeling into the narratives that are playing out for the collective. Yeah. The key word is indication. When positive, the degree is unusual keenness of observation. That's what it is. I feel that that's going to be, it's almost like there's a barometer of feeling into the collective that's going to create indifference for some. For others, this is a great deal of a remembrance of the skill sets, the desire sets, especially with the Mercury moving into this new emotional cycle, a cycle of meaning, real meaning, home, property, land, family. What feels right, what feels aligned, what feels good according to your specific blueprint, you know? Okay, beauties, I think that's all I have. I do want to let you know that I have some interesting things that are going to be announced. I'm not ready to announce them yet, though. I do have a sale going on. For those of you who were born under the sign of Gemini, my solar return cycles for you, the analyses for a Gemini-born person, solar return cycle, those are on sale for $59. And those are activated as long, until the sun moves into Cancer, until the summer solstice, until the solstice. So those are on sale. But the other thing that I will let you know, and this is more for those of you who have already received a natal analysis from me, is that I'm going to be creating a group, a blueprint group, those who have received their natal blueprint. And this is going to be happening about twice a month. These are going to be Zoom gatherings. They're going to be live Q&A. You're going to be able to do deep dives, but it's for those who have already received the full analyses. but this is going to be launching soon. I have a newsletter that's going to be going out in the next day, tomorrow probably. And there's something else as well, everybody. I almost think I should announce it separately, but I'll mention it to you here, is that the Kal Sarpa process that I just discussed, this is based on, well, the term itself is Jyotish. This is based on narratives and teachers that focus on Jyotish astrology, sidereal astrology. And for those of you familiar with Jyotish, you know that a key component of the system, which by the way, I also love. I don't teach it because I'm not a teacher of that. I don't have enough knowledge around that. But I know my Vedic, I know my Jyotish astrology, and I also follow the Mahadashas, which are these different cycles of time, different chapters of growth. You have them, they're accurate. And what I will say is that I'm going to be creating a product here that is an analysis of your Mahadasha period. And I'm working in collaboration with a good friend of mine who I've actually known since high school, and before that actually, who is exceedingly intelligent and very well versed. But essentially, she's pulling your Mahadasha, and I'm going to do an analysis on it, the signature of your current process. It is fascinating because it does feel very important as we move into this new cycle of growth, not only now with this new chapter of post-Kal Sarpa process, not only with all of the activations that are going to be going on in the fall, but then on the winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere on December 21st, we're going to be moving into a new point of shift, a paradigm shift. The conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn at 0 degrees Aquarius is tremendously potent. And what Mahadasha period, what chapter of your life are you actually in now? It goes, for me, it goes hand in hand with your progressed chart. The progressed Western astrological analysis shows us your growth and evolutionary process. So you don't need to know your Mahadasha. You don't need to know the cycle that you're in. But is it exceedingly helpful, and does it bring forward a new layer of depth and clarity about your current process? You better believe it does. And it allows a certain level of release and relaxation and allowance and acceptance to embrace the current correct chapter of your life for you. It is correct. And you're meeting this dynamic 2020 and 2021 cycle in a certain phase of your life that is accurate for you. Okay? All right, everybody. That was a lot. So I apologize. This went on a little bit long. But hopefully there was some information in here that was helpful for this upcoming chapter. If you have any specific questions, you can reach out. There were other activations here that I didn't go into too much detail with, but who knows, that might come in another video of a related thread. All right. So I send you much love, everybody. And I'll leave you here with the site. If you go to my site, you go to services, you're going to see down toward the bottom the sale for the Gemini solar return. Down at the bottom here. Okay. So for those interested, you can go there and order. For those with questions, you can throw me an email. I wish you all lots of love. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.